Defending your cyber castle. That's gonna be our theme today. Have a little fun with that. We'll talk about the castle and different things we're gonna talk about with our panelists in defending. All righty. Well, we'll go ahead and get underway. I think everybody's kind of had a chance to get in the door or the virtual door. Well, good morning, good afternoon. My name is David Waugh. I'm with Managed Methods. We are a cybersecurity, data protection, student safety company focused on the K-12 market space. I recognize in the audience, the virtual audience, some familiar faces. So some of you know who we are, and then some of you may not be as familiar, and this might be your first introduction to our organization. Full transparency, today is not a product demonstration. Today is a thought leadership conversation with some of your peers, some industry technology leaders, and to talk about some of the different layers of quote protecting that castle, as we're calling it today. Some general housekeeping items, before we get started. As always, this webinar is being recorded. All participants in the audience are on mute, so if you want to ask questions, comment, chime in, etc., for either myself or the panelists, please use the chat Q&A panels within the Zoom system here. And you will get a copy of the webinar. Usually it's about 24 hours. It just depends on the processing load and how fast Zoom gets that information back to my team here at Managed Methods, and then we get it distributed out to you. So thank you for joining us and taking time out of your day. Just for fun, I'm curious, people could throw it in the chat. Are you done for the school year? Meaning, are your kiddos done and they're starting off summer, or are you in your final week? I know here, at least in Colorado, and my kiddos, Colorado, we wrap up things pretty early out here. We wrap up before Memorial Day. At least the school district, my kids go to and my friends' kids. So we wrapped up before Memorial Day. So we're already a couple weeks into summer. Unfortunately, though, we go back to school rather early in I think the second week of August. So it comes at you quick. Yeah, thanks. I see some folks sharing their times out there. Well, hopefully we're getting into the blast of summer. So we talked about the housekeeping items and what's going on. Let's talk about our agenda, what we're going to cover today. For the next, say, 45 minutes or so. I'm going to do a little bit of overview, kind of set the stage of what we're going to talk about today. Those of you that have attended our webinars in the past know we kind of handle this, some of these types of webinars in like a talk show format where I'm going to be the host. I'll have a couple guests and we're going to go through some different areas. But think of this as if we were all kind of sitting around, say, in a big, conference room, or, we're all sitting around in the bleachers in a gymnasium. We're just having a general discussion. So while you are all muted in the audience, feel free to interact and ask questions. Share your thoughts on the various topics we'll get into, and ask questions of our panelists, or share your best practices or thoughts or questions or concerns over these topics. What are we here for? We're always here to talk about protecting schools, cybersecurity, whether that's around email, file sharing, third-party apps, Drive, OneDrive, Teams, SharePoint, etc. Anything that's happening in the Googleverse, the Microsoft layer, is obviously our specialty here at Managed Methods. And we've always been proponents of a multi-layered approach, because we realize that what we do at Managed Methods is focus on Google Workspace, Microsoft 365, the browser layer, the kiddo interface, the teacher interface, etc. However, the reason we're proponents of preaching for a multi-layered cyber security stack is that there are so many different avenues of how schools can fall victim to these things. If you've been in conversations before, we share this slide, because unfortunately more and more headlines happen daily. The sad part now, though, is I feel like these headlines have kind of drifted off to page 4 of the paper, if anyone still reads a paper, or it's at the very bottom of your news feed if you're scrolling through. I feel like the world has become numb to these things, and it becomes a belief of like, well, there's nothing you can do about it. So it's just to be prepared, a matter of when, not if. So point being is that's what we want to talk about, different layers. And we're going to, we put in here the idea of the lens through the Singularity MD attack. Those are a lot of reference points I use. The Singularity MD attack now has been about a year and a half ago. but there was a lot of lessons learned from it, and there's a lot of lingering side effects still that have occurred from that type of attack on districts. So when we talk about a multi-layered approach to your cybersecurity and data protection and safety, we're really talking about all these different types of layers. Now, obviously, we're only talking right here about 5 different layers with a bunch of sub-layers. Everyone knows that there's way more than that. We just took, a graphic here to point out kind of the high-level layers. And that's what we're going to talk about today with our panelists and look at each one of these areas as different ways to defend, if you would, your castle. Obviously, with the icons over there, you see the areas that Managed Methods plays in. We are best known for the top of this stack here, the cloud layer. It's not saying that any one of these layers is more important than the other. They're all important. And you need to make sure you address all of those things. And we're, again, proponents here at Managed Methods of pointing out that we will never tell you that we can solve all your end-all be-all problems for you. We're always going to focus in on the areas that we're specialists at, and we're going to try and make recommendations to other areas as best as we can. So, let's dive a little in here and have some fun. What are we talking about? So we'll start with the infrastructure layer, which is kind of the building blocks. And the infrastructure is, in this case, is the castle. We'll talk about the building blocks, the stone blocks that build the walls and the towers and protect our crown jewels, which is the data of our district, data about finances, student information, staff information. It's supposed to be all just school-related information, but of course we know that, staff members, students may store personal types of information of theirs in school-issued technology, whether it's OneDrive, SharePoint, or Google Drive, or shared drives, you name it. So that's what we're talking about when we talk about our infrastructure layers. We're talking about, the network coming in and the infrastructure that supports that, routers and switches and your firewalls and things of that aspect that are protecting that. Those are going to be your infrastructure layers. And what are some of the things that we'll talk about with our panelists could involve any of these types of things, whether it's, vulnerability and pen testing and how people can get access, whether it's patch management, whether it's identity access management, backup controls, you name it. So lots of aspects that go into the infrastructure security of the physical premises, the castle, if you would. The next aspect we're going to talk about will be that network layer. We're having fun here saying the network is the moat that surrounds the castle and the information flowing to and from the castle. And that could be, the types of things that control that network, whether it's filtering, whether it's secure Wi-Fi's, whether it's firewall technology, whether it's, IDS, IPS, and some other types of solutions. So continuing on protecting the infrastructure, but continuing now to protect how people get access in and out of that. Speaking of access in and out, the drawbridge. Can't have a castle and a moat without a drawbridge. So drawbridge is our play on the endpoint security discussion. So more aspects of filtering, because you can do filtering from the network layer. You can do filtering from the endpoint through agents and or extensions. You have, in certain worlds, if you're using, say, Windows PCs, Macs, you're going to have threat protection on those devices, virus protection and whatnot. And then you've got also things like MDM management, et cetera. So another, area in that layer, looking now at the third layer. Now let's move up to a fourth layer, and arguably newer layers, these last two. We're going to talk about the gatekeepers themselves. Here's one of those fancy knights out there. Always spooky. I don't know why. I've always thought the knights look spooky. But here we're going to be talking about access control, MFA, two-factor, SSO. We'll get into this with our panelists and talk about some of their different areas. And then last but not least, we have fun with this one because, we wear the shield here at Managed Methods. Cloud security, the knight in shining armor. I like that. I don't know. I think maybe is the marketing department referring to me as the knight in shining armor. I don't know. My head's shining. That's about all I know. So at the cloud security layer, we will be talking specifically more in our wheelhouse as we get into that aspect of where your data flows back and forth, whether it's through email, whether it's files, upload, downloads, file shares, the information sharing in your Google Workspace, your Microsoft 365. And of course, you have many other cloud-based applications, student information systems, finance systems, etc. So that's kind of a primer of what we're talking about today. Looking at this shared responsibility model, and that it's not just all these different layers, but you have to have communication with your vendors, your partners, having proper tool sets, training, protocols, process, procedures in place, and making sure you're prepped and raring and ready to go. Just a little bit about Managed Methods for those of you that don't know who we are, and you're maybe scratching your head, okay, where do we fall into the layers, or how does all this conversation start? Again, as I shared in that earlier graphic, there was two layers that we offer solutions for. Our flagship product, Cloud Monitor, is what most folks have known us for over the past 8-9 years. The Cloud Monitor product, I believe, has been in the market now going into its 8th year, I think. We are one of the leading providers for providing Google Workspace, Microsoft 365, security, safety, and control for K-12. And over the past year and a half or so, we've launched a content filter product due to popular demand from our customer base, which I think everybody's very familiar with: web filtering, SIPA filtering, etc., which is an extension-based solution for Chrome and Edge. As well as then very soon some capabilities around DNS for guest networks and Apple devices. And then, of course, for those of you that have followed Managed Methods this spring, we announced the new addition to the filter product, which is Classroom Manager, which I refer to as kind of like a sibling product. They kind of go hand in hand, which, of course, is engagement between the staff, the teacher, and the students in the classroom for better student engagement and safety and control and focus and all sorts of fun stuff. So now that we've kind of set the stage of what we're going to talk about, and a little bit about us, let me introduce my friends here. I'm super excited to have a couple of our friends join us today so that we can go through and talk, because these guys are going to have a lot more better insight into these things than I will, because I can talk about just the Managed Methods piece pretty much. So two gentlemen joining me today, Chris and Glenn. I'll let those guys go ahead and introduce themselves, because, well, it's better for them to share with you who you are, and then we'll jump into it. So, Chris, why don't you go first?
Sure. Yeah, my name is Chris Rowbotham. I'm the technology director for Siuslaw School District, which is a small school district in Florence, Oregon. We have about 1,200 students, 150 staff. And today is the last day of school, so if you hear any ruckus in the background, there could be something happening. I don't know. So it could be a lot of fun. But to you, Glenn.
Thank you. My name is Glen Drager. I am the IT director at the Tyrone Area School District in Tyrone, Pennsylvania, which is kind of in the middle of the state, very rural. We're a district of about 1,700 students, early childhood through 12th, and staff is around 280. And overall district, just to give you an idea of the budget, we're about a $30 million budget school district. So that overall, so that should give you some idea of our size.
Well, gentlemen, thank you very much for taking time out of your day. Chris, especially being the last day of school, thank you. But you like that, Chris, how I just let you guys introduce yourself so I didn't stumble, pronouncing
Siuslaw.
Siuslaw. Yeah, Siuslaw. So appreciate it. Well, again, thanks, guys, for joining. So let's just jump into it. We'll take the next 30 minutes or so to go through some of the questions we've chatted about and some of the topics, of course, having fun here with the theme of protecting that castle. So, and again, reminder to the audience, any questions or comments, or if you want to chime in on any of these topics and share your experiences, please feel free to do so in the chat aspects. So I'll just set the first stage. Let's start with layer one, or I shouldn't say layer one, but let's start with the first part of our infrastructure, the castle itself. So, we talked about the crown jewels. I think we probably are all in agreement of the crown jewels themselves. But I'll start with you, Chris, and go to you, Glenn. Is there anything specific when we kind of joke around and say the crown jewels, that's the data, the infrastructure that's housing it. Is there anything specific about your crown jewels? Like, has there been any experiences where, hey, we've got more of an emphasis right now on the finance department, or more an emphasis on central office or student information right now because of either a legislative requirement, a regional requirement, an incident that may occur? Anything of that nature, Chris?
Student data is always at the top of our minds, especially now that we know that that's really what the bad actors are going after, because they're able to start to build credit on a kindergarten account if they happen to get to it. And then by the time they get to turn 18, they're trying to open up a loan to buy a car, and they're finding out that their credit's been used. So we really do stress the importance of making sure that that data is protected, in addition, of course, to our staff. And we are doing MFA. We have not moved into the student MFA section quite yet, but we do know that cybersecurity insurance requirements are coming down the line that might push us in that direction.
Got it. Glenn, what's your take on the crown jewels?
Again, I agree. It is student information is where we're primarily focused. Being smaller district, central office is a limited number of individuals that we have trained pretty well as far as security measures. So although I would say we probably get hit more frequently on the financial side with spear phishing and things like that, definitely we're pretty well trained and we have some good trust with those individuals to make sure that they don't fall for any of that. So yeah, I'm more worried about the broader staff and the student population and protecting their data in a daily basis.
Identities, PII, student information, all sorts of stuff. And it's kind of a double-headed monster, if you would, coming out, because you have federal and state regulations, as well as then just, the need to have to protect certain types of data more so than others, because as you guys both talked about, Chris, you mentioned it. Not too many. I know my two kids that are, my one child now has actually finally used his social security number to apply for his first credit card when he got into college and trying to build his financials. And, but yes, I think anyone in our audience probably could share stories of situations where somebody's had credit issues happen with small children and whatnot, or under the age of 18. So let's dig further now into the infrastructure layer. So I'll stay with you, Glenn, since we just ended there. How are you managing access right now on critical infrastructure? And really, it's a wide open topic. You can share however you want to, but managing that access in and out of that data.
Sure. I mean, we certainly have protections in place to all our systems as far as SSO goes, for at least for staff. Again, we're in the same boat. Students are a bit more of a challenge for single sign-on and those sorts of things. As far as managing, role-based access and things like that, we are certainly utilizing the tools. We're a Microsoft and Google district. Both products have a good tool set for at least managing parts of role-based access, and besides internal AD, which we also have. So most of that is done through experience and scripting of access, so that we have a consistency among all our staff of, if you're in this role, you get these access levels. So,
Chris, what's your take from a managing access to the critical infrastructure and the data points?
Yeah, a lot of what Glenn said. We're all of our accounts to critical infrastructure. We have MFA, and we only limit those to those vendors that need access to those systems. We have a handful of VPN license, so we're not allowing too many people to use VPN, and the VPN has MFA on it. None of our daily accounts are running local admin rights, and we also have automatic patching happening at 4 a.m. every day to keep all of our systems up to par.
And Chris, have you conducted, on the access of the infrastructure, any types of vulnerability assessments, pen testing, and if so, what came out of that?
Sure. Yeah, we've not done any internal pen testing, but we do leverage CISA's external vulnerability testing. So I get weekly alerts on what it's found. And fortunately, after I took over,
I'd kind of already eliminated those XP machines that were running HVAC systems, and because of that, CISA hasn't found anything, but we do have that weekly thing happening, so we're able to see if there's something else that's getting pinged that we need to handle.
Yeah. Glenn, what's your take on managing that access, and same question of
we do this. We do utilize CISA as well for our external pen test, and anything that they've found, we try to remediate as quickly as possible. We also have locally, the National Guard has a cybersecurity team that you can make an appointment with, and they will come on site and do an assessment as well. And our insurance company also does that. You have a couple different options. All these are no cost to us. A little bit of time in trying to get involved with the National Guard, because they have a long backlog. But still, those are great tools to utilize, and we just continue to do that. Internally, we haven't done much pen testing. I do have a cybersecurity hire this year that's brand new, and so that's on his to-do list. So we'll probably make some progress over the summer on that.
Okay. And just for the audience members, because without a doubt, sometimes people will ask, wait, what, they're taking their notes. What was that you just mentioned? I threw in the chat there a link to CISA, which is CISA, of course, an acronym for the Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency, CISA. And you can just go to CISA.gov and go to the resource tools. And like both Glenn and Chris shared, lots of good resources that are out there and available to use. As with a lot of free or open source resources, a little bit of elbow grease required, a little bit of maybe a manual labor to get involved and get in there. Let's continue on now and come to the moat now, the network layer. So I'll stay with you, Glenn, right now on that. So let's talk about same topic, monitoring and control. How are you monitoring your network activity to detect anomalies or threats in real time, and how to respond to that?
Yeah, our firewall, primarily this is on the edge. Internally, we don't do a lot, but we certainly have IPS on our firewall capabilities along those lines. In addition, again, with CISA, we have an Albert box, which is monitored by them 24/7, 365 for any penetration activity. So.
And staying on that topic, before I jump over to Chris for this, what have been some of the big challenges you've been facing with balancing connectivity between staff and students? Do you have, is it students are just completely locked down and therefore you don't really have to worry about network security with them? Or what are some of the challenges in the balancing acts there?
Yeah, Chris mentioned that he has no admin on any workstations, obviously. We've been doing that since 1997. We went to NT Workstation, so instead of Windows 98. So nobody's had admin access locally since that time, and at least on the PC side. And as we've moved more and more into Chrome OS, that has also mitigated that. So we're certainly we try to just limit exposure to that, and utilizing the tools that are involved with that, like App Defender within group policy, Microsoft, which prevents inappropriate applications from running, things like that, utilizing those tools.
Okay. Chris, what's your take on the monitoring and of the network and tools to detect and defend? And
yeah, so we have MDR solutions and next-gen firewalls. Being a small school district, it's myself and I have an assistant. So we definitely don't have somebody that's just watching network traffic all day and waiting for alerts. So we really do count on our MDR solution to send us alerts when they see them and handle them. We also leverage MS-ISAC's MDBR, that malicious domain blocking and reporting. So we have that enabled for our DNS, so that helps keep a lot of our traffic from getting to those websites that have already been identified by MS-ISAC.
Got it. Okay. So again, another great reference and resource. I'll stay on that one right there. What he's referring to is the malicious domain blocking reporting is the acronym there for MDBR. So I'll throw that out in the chat as well too for those of you that are again scribbling your notes down, because again, there's another great resource reference out there that people can get out there to help them get through this. Okay, moving along. Let's jump into now endpoint security, antivirus type of discussions, that drawbridge, if we reference it from our graphics earlier in the slides. We'll stay with you, Chris. Tools or strategies you're using to protect staff and student devices. You know, you've already mentioned like the MDBR, talked about CISA. Are there other things in play as well?
Not for us. Those are pretty much the ones we are using. But I will add a small disclaimer with that to go back to the MDBR. It used to be a free resource, but MSISAC is moving to a paid model. So if you are wanting that service, you'll have to start to look at their new paid model, because unfortunately, MSISAC is no longer a free resource.
Yeah, with all the drastic budget cut measures happening everywhere, I think they're being forced into, hey, we got to fund some of these projects. But I think it's still fairly reasonable pricing, affordable.
Yes. Absolutely. And
they're realizing
is worth it, in my opinion.
Glenn, you know, anything additional tools or strategies that you're using out there to protect staff and student devices from threats, malware, malicious, you know, other than you mentioned Defender?
Well, yeah, actually, that's not our primary. Our state has, I think it's important, and I think cyber insurance companies certainly are requiring a full EDR, MDR package now. So we have a product that is a full tier 1 MDR suite that luckily our state has made an arrangement with, and we get extremely preferential pricing for. We are also a Microsoft A5 subscription, so we have Microsoft's Defender XDR product involved. That works well with this product as a secondary. So we have that. Our firewall has at the edge will block malicious content. So it has an antivirus, anti-malware component, and then on top of all that, we run yet another product. Should all 3 layers pass or fail, I should say, we have a product that sits at the kernel level looking for encryption processes and has about a 95% chance of grabbing the encryption key. So that's one of obviously getting crypto lockered is one of the large concerns for many districts, and one of the more embarrassing things for many districts to happen. So this particular product is just designed as a fail-safe for that.
Okay, a lot of layers, and that's here we go. This falls right into the conversation of multi-layer. You can have multi-layers within each layer. So
yep.
We'll stay on this, you know, and switch over a little bit to some of the challenges, you know, in managing this endpoint security. Is you just talked about these different layers. Is this an ongoing thing, or how much of that is outsourced to a managed service, if any?
On our end, we certainly, you know, to monitor 24/7, 365 is beyond our capabilities internally from staff for sure. So where possible, we try to engage with a monitoring service. We don't do it for everything, of course, but you know, so we do with our EDR product. You know, it's actually an MDR, so it's managed. It's managed externally, monitored 365. We have you know, that, as I mentioned, the Albert box from CISA that's monitored, and that is a paid service. Again, our state provided that to us, but that is 24/7, 365. So wherever possible, we're trying to make sure that that there's somebody there to respond to it, because it's just there's just too much.
Chris, same topic. Any challenges you're facing there in managing that? You mentioned it's just you and of course one other. Do you have a managed service in place for any of your endpoint?
Just the MDR solution. Yeah.
Okay. So in the same boat,
Exactly.
just less layers because you're Google only. You don't have Google and Microsoft.
Correct.
Got it. So let's shift along, guys. We'll go over to the gatekeeper side of things, moving along here. So we've been talking about like staff access, student access, access to data. What are some of the controls, getting more granular, have you put in place on staff or students or both that control access to who can get to what data? Are we, whether it be types of identity access management, parts of your single sign-on or, multi-factor authentication, or maybe DLP rules? What are some of the things you've put in place in terms of managing account access and data access?
Yeah, because we're Google Shop, we've definitely leveraged putting in some DLP rules and turning on enhanced phishing protection, and definitely gone into a lot of the configs that the Google Admin Console gives us. And in addition, we've used managed methods to create some of those functionality in that dashboard to keep us safe. Like, for example, we've got a rule that says if there's a student that's logging in from outside the US and is successful, to reset the password immediately and just set up different functionality to keep our students safe.
Nice little plug for the Shield managed methods. Thank you. Yes, and complementary, hand in hand. We sit on top there in that environment with Google and Microsoft. Glenn, we'll ask the same question of you. The managing access, staff, students, whether it be through a single sign-on, rules, DLP, what other kind of controls? What are some of the things you're doing?
I mean, we do what we certainly have SSO. We have certainly followed a process of limiting access to what is absolutely necessary. But on top of that, yes, we do utilize both tool sets. Both Microsoft and Google have extensive tool sets to manage conditional access, or for example, logging in from an external country. So we have the same type of rules in place that monitor that. For that, we have some automated rules. Both Microsoft more recently has been looking at some has been evaluating login processes and Google does this as well, as troublesome logins. There's something wrong with that. So there's conditional access rules that automatically put that into a higher level of access requirements, so that it has to be MFA'd, or it can't, it expires all the tokens, and the next time they log in they have to MFA. So utilizing the tool sets that we have, that can be somewhat, especially having Google and Microsoft, there's a lot out there to really learn and really to configure the products correctly. Which is why we rely on some third-party tools like Managed Methods to give us a single pane of glass into both environments, and give us the data in a much more consumable fashion for us. It's much easier product to look at and take a look at activities in both environments simultaneously. So we're able to resolve issues much more quickly across both platforms.
Got it. And yes, I mean, lots of different ways there. And again, a plug on Managed Methods Cloud Monitor is that we can sit on both platforms, Google, Microsoft, simultaneously. But yes, it's always important to make sure you're utilizing different rule sets. And it's, here we go with that multi-layered approach again. We are another layer that's going to supplement maybe some of the native things, whether it be a free version or a paid version with vendors like Google or Microsoft. And I know that the question always comes up. Some folks will ask us, well, if we've got a paid version, can we still use, managed methods, or does managed methods require certain licensing levels? And the answer is no. Glenn, you mentioned you have A5. We work with, whether it's, I think A1, A3, A5, Google Workspace, all the versions, whether it's fundamental, teaching and learning, standard, plus, whatever they're calling it today. So yes, lots of ways for us to be a part of that role. So, staying with you real quick, Glenn, do you have differences with the kiddos and staff, or do you apply kind of the same rules across, or do you have a separate set of rules that are more restrictive on either specific faculty, staff, departments, like finance has more restrictive rules than maybe another group? Or is it, and then, same thing with kiddos. Are kiddos just completely, hey, we don't let them have access at all?
We certainly are much more restrictive on the student side, I would say. A lot of that goes all the way down to group policy and or however you're managing your PCs, whether Intune or group policy, to provide much more limited access. But in all honesty, our staff are also extremely restricted. They can't log in from an external country without letting me know first that they're going on a field trip, and they're tools like that. So we try to keep it simple and keep it consistent, because having too many rules, it ends up being very difficult to remember, at least for me, to remember which group is given more privilege and not, and try to manage all those different groups separately. So we try to keep things consistent across our entire staff and student population.
Got it. Chris, what's your take? Is it similar to Glenn in that less is more here, keep it simple, or do you have maybe more sets of rules either on specific staff type accounts? Maybe they're more sensitive central office versus in the schools. What's your take on that?
Yeah, so we're a lot like Glenn. A lot of our policies are pretty much standardized. I mean, we do restrict students, and we have a few other DLPs set up to kind of watch for that. And we do have some DLPs set up for our finance team to make sure that things aren't going out the wrong way. So, but mostly like Glenn.
The KISS principle: keep it simple, stupid. Just let's make simplicity in process and procedure, and really, I think in some regards, cybersecurity zero trust kind of mentality is, hey, let's keep it simple, just zero trust. Lock it down, keep the rules simplistic. Well, that's good. Well, let's jump now into probably my favorite part of the conversation, is because it's the cloud layer. That's the part that I love the most. And arguably, it's still, I think, in so many cases, it's still seemingly like uncharted waters for a lot of folks. We hence managed methods, and why we are, do so well and are growing so much over the years, is that this area still seems to be the least addressed in some aspects, because too many folks maybe just rely on maybe what the native vendor tools provide, or that they don't realize there's other aspects. So how are you securing, and I'm going to stay with you, Chris, how are you securing your Google environment, whether you want to say from the top down or in the weeds? And I know you've already shared a few things. Walk us through that aspect.
Yeah, so we are a Google Workspace Plus customer, so we do pay for Google, but we also have managed methods. And for me, as a small school district director that doesn't have time to literally just sit and audit Google and make sure things are going according to plan, and that we're not getting different leaks and attacks, I leverage managed methods because of a lot of the way the dashboard is set up. I can quickly jump into the dashboard to start my morning and look at a Google map and see, okay, I've got a login that came in from Russia, but luckily it was unsuccessful. But I can look to see if it was a student or staff, or maybe there was a successful login from another country. And then I can quickly just start working on that. And then there's also a section that shows me the different risks, whether it was a student that typed in, I hate my life, I I don't want to be here anymore, I can quickly get that information over to our administrators so they can get it to the counselors or the other teams that deal with that. So having both is really nice, because Google Admin Console, for a lot of you that are Google customers, you know that it's super clunky and it's sometimes hard to get to the information quickly that you need to get to. And Managed Methods just makes it a lot easier for being more efficient, because as I said, I don't have time to just sit and play in Google Admin Console a lot of times during the day.
And of course, you know, I know you've worked with our customer success team on, you know, you described ways of certainly diving in and investigating and looking for things and understanding in more of a triage fashion. But I know that, you know, of course, you've worked with our customer success team on setting up rules and policies to say, if this login happens, quarantine or suspend, or if this thing is happening, alert on us and route, that information out to the appropriate people. Because that's a big conversation that comes up a lot when, you know, we talk about cybersecurity and student safety. You know, a lot of the audience here is going to say, hey, I need the alerts on well-being and student safety to go directly to the people in the school that are closest to the kiddo, whereas bring the IT, cybersecurity, those type of alerts to us, because we'll handle those. So that separation is what we specialize in too. So Glenn, you know, and Chris, I'll bounce back and forth here. I'll come back to you. Glenn, obviously you're using Managed Methods Cloud Monitor as well. You're a little bit different scenario. You have Google and Microsoft. So what are some of the ways that you're securing top down your overall Google and Microsoft footprint?
Again, we're utilizing best practices of configuration of both environments, trying to figure out the best way to make sure that is secure, and having monitoring in place. There's a lot of different capabilities in both systems, as well as Managed Methods and other products that provide us information and alerts. And we're actually implementing a SIEM this summer so that we can hopefully percolate the most important alerts to our attention faster. So yeah, it's just a matter of just being diligent in how you configure the product. Involve the experts if you're not familiar with it. There are certainly configuration guides, frameworks available from CISA that will help you configure, especially your PC environment and things like that, to best practices. And just make sure that you're doing your due diligence there to try to keep the machines and the environment as secure as possible.
Good. What excuse me, Glenn, we'll stay with you. So on specific things when it comes to cloud-related security, have you had to respond to any cloud-related security incidents in, say, the spring here? And if so, what did you learn? How did you approach it?
I mean, our biggest issue, and I think probably for a lot of districts, if you're not MFA'd on students, is going to be student password compromise. A 12th grader that's had their password out there and hasn't changed it, since they were in 5th grade or whatever, they're going to and they reuse their passwords. That's going to be compromised. So we just have to constantly monitor for that and respond to those kind of events. That's probably what we've seen the most of. Again, we take a look at our daily. One thing like Managed Methods has is a nice Google map on the main landing page, which tells you, okay, here's all your login activity in a pinned map of the last week worth of login attempts. And it's not, we're a small district in the middle of nowhere, basically. We have thousands of attempts every week. I get 80,000 attempts on our VPN, I believe, a week is what I last logged it at. So we're constantly getting attacked. It's just, we just have to monitor that and just make sure that we're responding to events in a timely fashion, that anything that needs mitigated.
Chris, what's your experience, your take on, what I was just asking Glenn, has there been any cloud-related security incidents? And if so, what did you learn? What would you change? What would you do differently, the same?
Yeah, so on the same line as Glenn, we've definitely had some student compromised accounts because students use their school password on other websites that have been compromised. So a few weeks ago, we had a student that said they got hacked and their account got compromised, and we were at least able to go in and make sure that none of the SAML had been used, and we were able to lock it down before any really bad activity happened from it.
So yeah, shocker that the kiddos would use the passwords. Yeah, because in many cases, the school email is their main email. Of course, as you and Glenn and I could talk about, we've seen staff do the same thing. When there's use your personal account, staff member, don't use your school account for these things. As we get into those, well, we've kind of bounced through all 5 layers. Let's kind of open it up to the speed round, and this is where we're going to open it up to the audience too. I'll go with Chris, start with you, and then I'll come back to Glenn. Final thoughts on and how you foster cybersecurity awareness, just as make this a village. Not just you and your team. Is how does everyone get involved in this? And what would be suggestions you may share, to the audience? Obviously, you guys have both given lots of great suggestions, and I've tried to put some of those resources in the chat. So I'll go with you, Chris. Then we'll go to you, Glenn, and then we'll open it up to the audience for questions.
Yeah, so to make sure that we're being as safe as we can, we're fortunate that our state has a cybersecurity awareness training platform that they do let us use for free. So at the beginning of every year, there's a bunch of videos they watch, and they're being updated to more current attacks. So they're getting better at learning the terminology, and that's been really good for us. And then in addition, I would say probably professional learning communities, making sure that you get involved with a lot of like the MSISACs. K-12 Tech Talk has a great community. Some of the Reddit sysadmins, Reddit K-12 sysadmin, just making sure that you're in some kind of community where you're seeing what's really happening live on that day, because you can get a lot of information from other directors that are dealing with something that might be happening, and then you can look at your own stuff and be like, oh yeah, I need to be turning that button on, or I need to be looking into this. So I think that's been really critical for me, just to get involved with different communities and to learn from other directors.
Absolutely. And you mentioned some friends of ours too that were, I'll give a quick plug for them. The guys at K-12 Tech Talk, you're right. They put together a great podcast. They also put together a really good set of conferences. They do 2 a year in Missouri, which is their home state, where those guys, well, not all the guys, but where some of it got started. So if you're looking to learn a lot about cybersecurity and you want to be hot and sweaty, in July, Lake of the Ozarks, Missouri, that's where the folks at K-12 Tech Talk. But definitely to the audience, check out their podcast. That's another great resource. They talk about a lot of good stuff. It's basically like this. They're sitting around chatting about common threads and common topics, including silly things like getting trapped in the elevator in the school, kind of stuff like that. So, but also you mentioned regional groups, outstanding. I know obviously you're heavily involved with the ACPE, which is the COSIN chapter affiliate up there in Oregon and Washington, Idaho, or Pacific Northwest, wherever it's all covered. So also, yes, great resources is tap into not only just state resources and national resources, but also your regional chapters, your peers. Absolutely. Glenn, we'll wrap up with you on that, advice, thoughts, comments, and then we'll go to the audience.
Yeah. Pretty much same as Chris. Definitely you want to engage with your staff. Certainly have a fish test program. We've run one for several years, but also regular communications, try to make them entertaining, so that they can see, what some of the current phish attempts are, or certain security related practices best practices they should be following. I will occasionally send them, hey, I'll send a staff member the login attempts for the past week for their particular account, just to let them know. And they have 380 attempts. Just this is what we're facing. So you got to get some buy-in from staff on, because they don't, nobody loves SSO. Nobody loves having to go through all these extra hoops. They need to understand why we're doing a lot of this stuff. So you just need to be communicative of that fact. And yeah, definitely engage with the rest of your peers. First thing in the morning, I pretty much go to K-12 sysadmin Reddit, see if there's anything new that I should be worried about for the day. And get a little bit of peer engagement there, and try to figure out what we can resolve, because it does work. We're able to get things resolved much quicker as a group. So that's great. Just also engage with the rest of your peers in your local area. In Pennsylvania, we have consortia called IUs. Pretty much everybody has consortia. Be engaged with that. Make sure that you try to meet with the rest of your peers if they're providing some technology services, so that you're keeping up to date and being prepared.
Yeah, but again, you hit the nail on the head there that we're big advocates for, and we try to support as many regional events as we can. Obviously, a big one in your state is Tech Talk Live. They do that's put on by one of the IUs, as you mentioned, one of the regional consortiums. And again, similar to ACPE, a just perfect event for technology, team members, leadership inside of districts to gather birds of a feather and not only meet with each other and share best practices, but meet with vendors, meet with industry groups, etc. So good stuff. So we'll just share here the poll that was thrown out there to the audience. Was asking, of these layers we've talked about, which has been the most challenging for you or your team? And it looks like identity and access management has edged out the rest. It was a dogfight there between identity and access management and endpoint security, but cloud security in third place, and then networking and infrastructure lagging there. Now, honestly, I'm not too surprised about those answers, because network and infrastructure have been around forever. I mean, we've had a long time working on those things. So it's these other areas that tend to be the newer edge. So thank you for those that answered that. Any questions from anyone in the audience? We're reaching the top of the hour, so we're going to be wrapping things up. And I wanted to find out if anyone out there had a question, a comment for either one of our panelists, or anything you want to share in there. We'll see if any questions pop up. I want to thank everyone out there in the virtual land audience that joined us today. I threw up on the screen there a QR code if you'd like to take a look further into Managed Methods and understand what we do. If you want to take advantage of a free risk audit inspection of these 5 areas we've discussed, there's a lot of ways you can do it. We can help you with the cloud application layer for sure. And, you can always reach out to your peers to talk about lots of other conversations and stuff. But certainly feel free to reach out to Managed Methods if you have any questions. Let's look at what we have here in the chat. What are your best Google Suite rules for an international school? Ooh. I don't know that either one of you necessarily have international footprints. So that one, I'm happy to take that question. If there's anyone else in the chat, in the audience that's involved with an international school, feel free to throw out, an answer or give your information to someone. But also, Kim, if you reach out to Managed Methods, we could certainly get you in touch with some of our other customers that are on the international presence. That's a good question. That's a challenging one. International presence is a little bit more challenging. Well, Glenn, Chris, my friends, thank you so much for taking time out of your day, especially Chris today being the last day of school. Woo, rock and roll. And everyone who joined in the virtual audience, thank you so much for your time today. We appreciate the conversation, Glenn and Chris, and sharing your thoughts and comments. For all you out there that's registered for this, you will be getting a recording soon. So check your inbox on that. And then if you want to dive into more details and learn about what we can help with your Google and Microsoft environment or web filtering or classroom management, feel free to reach out to Managed Methods. You can go to sales@managedmethods.com or scan that QR code and get more information. With that said, Glenn, Chris, obviously I didn't get the memo. I didn't get the cool castle cloud backdrop for my Zoom. But that also, I probably did get the memo and I just forgot to put it up there. But anyways, gentlemen, thank you so much for your time today. Appreciate you being a part of this. And, hey, have a great summer. And everyone out there, be safe. Have a great summer. And hopefully for those of you wrapping up school, best wishes here on the last day of school, Chris.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.